Vítejte u pořadu Téma Z1 dnes s Janem Zikou. Pokud jste na televizi Z1 viděli dokument Cityboy, pak svého prvního hosta nemusím nijak složitě představovat. Bude jim sám Geraint Anderson. Pro ty z vás, kteří se nedívali, doplním, že Geraint byl úspěšným bankovním analytikem, který se rozhodl napsat knihu o zákulisních praktikách londýnského finančního sektoru. No a ve druhé části se podíváme na YouTube, kam portál po 5 letech svého fungování směřuje a jak bude reagovat na nové trendy. I o tom jsem se bavil se Suveerem Kotharim ze společnosti Google, který má mimo jiné na starosti YouTube ve střední Evropě, na Blízkém východě a v Africe. Tentokrát bohužel dotazy mým hostům pokládat nemůžete, protože jsme rozhovory z časových důvodů předtáčeli. A ještě doplním jednu důležitou informaci. Pořad jsme pro vás připravili jak v originální anglické verzi, tak s českým překladem. A v pátek a v pondělí během dne odvysíláme rozhovory v angličtině. O víkendu a v pondělí večer pak nabídneme právě český dubbing. Obě verze potom najdete na YouTube. Geraint Anderson se narodil v rodině váženého politika a misionářky. Chodil do prestižních škol a po studiích se toulal po světě jako hippie. To se ale rodičům moc nelíbilo a tak mu v roce 1996 starší bratr zařídil v uvozovkách dobré místo v londýnské City. Ve 24 letech nastoupil jako analytik do nizozemské investiční banky ABN AMRO.
Geraint se naučil pohybovat v novém prostředí velmi rychle. Brzy se stal zdatným obchodníkem a začal vydělávat velké peníze. Původně chtěl zůstat 5 let, ale s narůstající výší odměn rostla chuť po zisku. Jeho plat a roční bonusy šly nahoru astronomickou rychlostí. Z mladého idealisty se stal stejně bezohledný a chamtivý stroj na peníze, jakým byli lidé z jeho okolí. Stejně rychle jako do biznesu se dostal i do spirály kokainových večírků s klienty a prostitutkami. Po 10 letech se v Andersonovi něco zlomilo. O nečistých praktikách obchodování začal psát v listu London Paper. Pod články se podepisoval jako Cityboy.
O své práci v City jsem měl odjakživa pochybnosti. Jako křesťan a levicový hippík jsem kvůli tomu, co dělám, vždycky cítil vinu.
V systému ale zůstával dál. Čekal na největší bonus 500 000 liber. Až když ho dostal, dal výpověď a začal psát knihu, která ho proslavila.
A s Geraintem jsme se bavili nejen o knize, ale také o rozdílech mezi jednotlivými bankami, společenské odpovědnosti firem, regulaci a výhledu do budoucna. So, Geraint, to what extent is your book fiction?
It's about 80% fact. I have taken some of the best stories that I heard from my colleagues and from my clients, and I've stolen them because they were so damn good. But essentially, this is my story. This is what happened to me during my 12-year career in the city. And unfortunately, as the book shows, I did turn from being quite a nice person into what I would call a ruthless, selfish, nasty, corrupt idiot.
Well, that's what you say, but you certainly described a lot of interesting characters as well.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, did some specific people find themselves in those characters?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone who works in the financial capital of the city, who worked in my sector, which is the utility sector, pretty much knows exactly which character is which character. And some of them, like the genius and the leader.
Hugo,
well, I'm afraid Hugo definitely exists. He knows who he is. All our mutual clients know who he is. We haven't discussed it since the book came out, but I believe that if we were to meet, that particular man would probably punch my nose really hard.
And I must say for the viewers that that's the most negative person probably in the whole book. Now, when you describe the motives for the behavior of City Boys, it seems that you describe them as victims, but aren't a lot of people just actually happy living their life the way they do in the city?
I don't believe so. It's easy for people who've made a bit of money to say that money doesn't make you happy. But I can assure you there was never a correlation between those people who are making lots of money and how happy they were. In fact, the city is full of people in their 40s, on their third wife, alcoholics, coke addicts, big, fat, red-faced people who wondered where it all went wrong because the city sucks in all the talent from Britain, people who should be curing cancer, people who should be sorting out global warming, and they realise at a certain age often that they've made lots of money, but they've kind of wasted their lives.
When you talk about the vices of the speculators, you are very critical, but aren't they just a catalyst for what the society wants and the reflection of the market economy?
Yes, I mean, you know, it is a tragedy that at the moment certainly in Britain and maybe across the world, the principal aim for everyone is just the accumulation of wealth. You know, religion has been discredited to a large extent, communism has, and now into the vacuum, people just want money. And the simple fact is that speculators often are just pushing an open door. That's to say, if they are betting against the Greek economy, that's because the Greek economy is in trouble. However, sometimes they do, in fact quite often, they do lots of illegal things to make sure their bets come good. They trade on inside information, they spread false rumors, they manipulate markets, they do anything to make a buck.
Can that be stopped, specifically the insider trading and spreading false rumors?
It's really hard. It's a really tough thing to stop. Certainly in Britain and America, for once, we are now trying to have a push. Because remember, in the city, all we ever do is weigh up risk and reward. And I'm afraid the risk of being caught for insider information has been zero. For about 10 years in Britain, we've had no convictions, and the rewards have been massive. Likewise for spreading false rumors. The city is full of greedy, ruthless, selfish people who will do anything to make money. However, at the moment, the police force is very ineffective. There is no deterrent whatsoever.
You described the financial sector as being somehow different, being perhaps more greedy, being more competitive. But when I was reading your book, I was thinking, isn't it the same wherever you look within the corporate sector? Perhaps it might be a little more extreme in the city, but the same features you could probably find everywhere.
You know what, you have got a point, because remember, my career started in the city and ended in the city. Now, since I've done my career in the city, I've been interacting with people in media, people in publishing, people in advertising, and much to my horror, there is the same amount of greed to some extent. However, I do believe that people go into the city for one reason, to make a quick buck. And the actual fact of the matter is that it particularly attracts arrogant people who want to make a quick buck and have no regard for what their actions do to others. Hence, there are guys working in structured finance who felt able to infect the world with $1 trillion worth of bad loans and cause a credit crunch, knowing those loans would explode, but not caring because they made big bonuses in the meantime.
Were you arrogant?
It's very hard not to become arrogant. When you're 25 years old and you're earning 5 or 6 times more than your father, who is a hard-working man, who was a politician, and you're earning 8 times more than all your friends who've become teachers or, you know, stupid jobs, of course you become arrogant. And if you're a client in the city, you become even more arrogant because everyone is kissing your ass day in, day out.
Now, I think it's probably difficult to get out of that spiral once you are in. But do you think that the people in the city, do you think that they have a plan for what they want to do afterwards?
Yeah.
Or they just don't even see that or think about that?
Everyone who goes into the city generally says, I'll do it for 5 years, I'll do it for 10 years. However, I mean, I said I'd do it for 5 years, and I ended up doing it for 12 years. However, after 10 years, that's when you're making the serious money. So you say, I'll just do it for another 5. Let me tell you a story. When I went into the city, me and 5 of my clients sat down, and we discussed how much money you'd need before you left. We came to a conclusion, £2.5 million, maybe 4 million euros. After this, suddenly we achieved this goal, and they said, you know what, no, it's going to be £10 million, or let's say 17 million euros.
It just keeps growing.
It just keeps on growing. Greed is endless. You're not happy with 1 Ferrari, you want 2 Ferraris. You know, and this is why it's so evil. It's so rare that people actually leave. What I did is what people say they're going to do, but I actually managed to do it.
You also went through different banks. Do you think that the corporate culture differs in those places, or basically it's the same?
No, the European banks, which I principally were at, like Dresdner and Commerzbank and Société Générale, they were a little bit less aggressive, a little sleepier, and frankly, less efficient at making cash. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, these places produce robots who work 15 hours a day and have a single goal, in the case of Goldman's, to become a partner, and then you really start making the big money. You know, there was a rumor that went round that Goldman Sachs Human Resources Division looked for people who were probably bullied at school, because they are the guys who've got the necessary insecurity to work 15 hours a day.
No, why do you think that there is this difference between European banks and the US banks?
I suppose it's a bit like the president who says the business of America is business, you know? There's something so almost beautiful, yet also very frightening about the culture in a place like Goldman Sachs, which is so hard and fast. I would argue that maybe in Europe we have a slightly better attitude to life. You know, in America, a lot of banks give you 2-3 weeks holiday a year. Now in France, you know, you get that every month. So, you know, it's basically, it's about a slightly different set of priorities. In Europe, we do actually value our life outside work. If you had that, if even suggesting that attitude in an American bank, you could be fired for probably.
What percentage of people, those professionals working in the city, are actually taking drugs? But I'm not talking recreationally, I'm talking taking drugs to enhance the performance because perhaps that's the necessary requirement.
It's difficult to say. You know, in the city, we keep our drug intake really, really well hidden because you can lose your job from it. And in America, they will have random drug tests and so forth. So no one knows about it. But sometimes, you know...
What your estimate?
I mean, you know, honestly...
Is it 50% or is it 80%? Is it 10%?
It's 10%.
Okay.
It's 10% because the problem is that in Britain, in London, everyone's taking cocaine at the moment. That's the simple truth. You go into any toilet of any dubious pub and you look at the cistern and there's white crumbs. Now, if you've got young men who've been working hard all week, who like a drink, who want to stay up all night, and they've got lots of money, they're going to take cocaine. And, you know, to be honest with you, I did a lot of it with a lot of my clients, and I'm not proud of it, and those days are over. But, you know, I used to be very naughty, and that used to be one way I bonded with my clients.
So can you say that it is necessary to even survive in that culture under all the stress and, you know, to be able to socialize with these people?
Well, it certainly helped me, but to be honest with you, the system is changing now. There is a whole breed of people entering the city who want nothing more to make money and to be very professional. And one thing that is slightly tragic about my book, Cityboy, is that in many ways it's a warning to people about how a nice person can become a complete nasty, ruthless idiot. And yet all the emails I receive from my readers are saying, please tell me how you get this job, because it sounds wonderful.
You are also an advocate for the sort of ethical approaches to business. Is that even possible in finance where the profit motive is crucial?
I'm afraid to say that I am very skeptical about what we call corporate social responsibility. But let's just be honest here. The shareholders of a company have got one reason for holding those shares, and that is increasing their capital. And the only thing that those guys in the boardroom are interested in is increasing their quarterly profits. There is a great documentary which actually suggests large corporations are like psychopaths. They show no remorse. They have no compassion. They don't care about laws. You know, and they will do anything in their power to achieve their one goal. And that's why, ironically, since corporations effectively run this world, we are effectively being run by a bunch of psychopaths who will screw up the environment, screw up society, and they don't care.
What is the alternative?
We need stricter regulation. We need people like, for example, British...
Well, you say strict regulation, but now when the regulation is created by the regulators are controlled usually by politicians, and politicians can be just as corrupt as the guys in the corporate sector, which is actually what very often happens. The regulation is created.
But then the regulators must be made independent of the politicians. And what the regulatory priorities must be, they must give a genuine deterrent for companies to do wrong. Let me give you one example. I know someone who worked in the environmental division of a very large petroleum company. And he said that they made a balanced decision about whether they should break environmental laws or not, based on the chances of getting caught and the fine if they were caught. So in other words, we're going to break laws if it increases our profits on a risk-adjusted basis. I mean, this is crazy. This is what the world's being run by. And it does mean, I'm afraid, that unless this stops, that the environment will get worse, society will get more divided, and we'll just have more boom and bust. And this is why I wrote the book in many ways, to warn people about this crazy mentality.
Do we have less moral hazard now than we had, let's say, when you were writing the book?
No, to be honest with you, I'm a bit of a pessimist. You know, I see the changes in reform and regulation that is suggested by Obama and in the UK and elsewhere. So far, we've seen very little concrete. At the moment, the simple fact is that more and more people want to go into the city. And ironically, the recent financial crisis we've had has in fact created more financial crime because people think I may not have a job in a year's time, I might as well go crazy. You know, 30% of all takeovers by companies in the UK are preceded by suspicious trades. That is not my judgment, that's the judgment of the city regulator, and yet no one gets caught for insider trading. It's a Wild West casino, and I would say, to mix my metaphors, that the loonies have taken over the asylum. I'm sorry, it's particularly since the hedge funds got so much power.
When do you think that someone else will write a similar book describing the loathing in the square mile?
Well, you know, the funny thing is that prior to my book, there had been a space of 20 years since someone had written a popular book exposing the city and all Wall Street. And the reason for that is there is a code of silence. And if you break that code, you are what we call persona non grata. Since I've written my book, there have been about 4 or 5 or maybe 10 that other people have written. All I can say is that I would be writing the next definitive book. And, you know, I'm going to try and write another book where I focus on some other elements of corruption, notably money laundering, which again is something that happens in the City of London a hell of a lot.
Geraint, thank you.
Thank you.
Když se podíváme na YouTube, tak je tu přehled dalších nejdůležitějších zpráv ze společenského biznesu.
Jeden z nejdražších hotelů světa, Emirates Palace v Abu Dhabi, přichází s vůbec prvním bankomatem na zlato. Hosté si z něj mohou vybrat originální formou zlaté mince nebo takzvané zlaté pruty. Na špionáži pro Pentagon v Afghánistánu a Pákistánu se podle listu New York Times podílí i společnost s českým vlastníkem. Jedná se o firmu International Media Ventures se sídlem na Floridě. Ústav jaderného výzkumu v Řeži se začal podílet na prestižní výrobě lékařských radioizotopů. Pokrývat bude 5% celosvětové poptávky v nukleární medicíně. Česká republika bude do 10 let podporovat svoji vědu a výzkum částkou ve výši 3% hrubého domácího produktu. Navýšení výdajů na vědu a výzkum je jeden ze závazků státu v rámci nové evropské strategie 2020. Pyramida v mexickém Chiapas de Corzo odhalila pravděpodobně nejstarší známou hrobku v Mezoamerice. Stáří hrobu odhadují archeologové na 2700 let.
Unikátní služba pro sdílení videa YouTube funguje už 5 let. Uživatelé si na portálu každý den pustí 2 miliardy záznamů. I přesto byl ale doteď pro svého majitele internetového lídra Google ztrátový. Letos by se mělo to poprvé změnit.
They have really long fronts, and that's cool.
Právě tak vypadal v květnu roku 2005 start v současnosti celosvětově nejoblíbenější videostránky. Každou minutu na ní nahrají uživatelé kolem 20 hodin záznamů, a to videí vtipných, hudebních, rodinných, ale i politických. U každého z nich jsou pak uvedené podrobné informace, například o počtu shlédnutí. Mezi nejoblíbenější tak patří například rodinné kousnutí do prstu nebo nový klip Lady Gaga, který vidělo přes 200 milionů lidí. Stránka byla původně určená jen pro domácí videa. Brzy se na ní ale začaly objevovat i sestři z pořadů a filmů nebo právě videoklipy. Od té doby se YouTube potýká s porušováním autorských práv. V současnosti už ale díky různým smlouvám nabízí například oficiální hudební videa ve vysoké kvalitě nebo i živé přenosy. YouTube založili 3 zaměstnanci společnosti PayPal a už o rok a půl později za něj zaplatil americký Google v přepočtu více než 34 miliard korun. Reklamní potenciál serveru je ale stále málo využitý. Letošní rok by měl být prvním, kdy nebude videokanál ztrátový.
Se Suveerem Kotharym jsme mluvili o financích, autorských právech a také nových trendech v oblasti video on demand. Suveer Kothari, the head of media solutions for emerging markets at Google, is with me now. Welcome.
Thank you.
So YouTube has been around for 5 years. How much has the original vision changed?
The original vision was to make it really easy for people to share videos. And I think we still are the easiest place for people to share videos with each other. But what we've done is we've added a lot of other layers to the site. So now you can have professional content, and you can do a whole host of other things on the site. So I think the original vision has expanded.
So which videos are currently still the most popular?
Well, music videos are always really popular on YouTube, but we also have...
Are these legal videos, or is it uploads that people perhaps not always legally upload to YouTube?
Well, actually, what we allow content owners like music companies to do is to claim content which is uploaded to YouTube and put their ads against it. So most of this stuff is legally uploaded, and it's a great opportunity for people to share and listen to music online.
I won't even ask you how many minutes of video content there is on YouTube, because it's perhaps decades. But will you be able to keep up the pace of new videos and new content being created and added to
Yeah, we've gone from a few hours uploaded every minute to now 24 hours of video uploaded every minute to YouTube, which is an amazing stat. And thanks to Google's fantastic technology, we're able to really keep up with this and keep on growing the site. So yeah, I'm looking forward to when that 24 hours becomes 48 hours.
So you won't be deleting any videos?
No, I don't think so. We have enough storage for as many videos as you want to upload.
Is YouTube profitable? I'd like to talk about finance a little bit, because this has been an issue for a long time, not with just YouTube, but perhaps with other services that certainly they are great, social networks, the similar story, but finding the profits was not very easy for the companies.
So we're really happy with how YouTube's doing. I think it's been really successful. We've had advertisers from all over the world using the platform, and we know that video advertising is going to be a really important part of our society going forward. So I think we're really excited about the revenue prospects.
I can imagine that serving all these video streams every day is costly. What would you say is your major expense? Is it supporting this infrastructure?
Of course, it's expensive to manage and support that, but luckily at Google, we're really good at streaming and managing content, of course, with google.com being our big site. So I think we're really managing it quite well.
Everyone is now talking about connected television. That means your TV set can be actually connected online and can get broadband content. So Samsung, for example, has partnered with LoveFilm to provide broadband content. Google, Sony, and Intel are now talking about the smart TV, and also broadcasters are coming up with their application. So what does it mean for YouTube?
Well, I think what we want to do is make YouTube accessible on as many devices as possible. So today you can already see that 1% of our views are coming from mobile phones. In the future, I hope that we'll be getting many more views from TV. So what it means for us is we have to make it an easy access option for everyone.
Will your business model change?
I don't think so. Our business model is really based on basically advertising, but also we're testing out models like rentals and streaming in the US. So potentially that will increase as we increase the different ways of getting access to YouTube.
How will you make money on that? Because I can imagine that the advertising revenue will also be interesting for those providers of these platforms. So will you be able to really get your hand on that revenue?
Well, I think it's very similar to the way other advertising mediums work. Of course, Sony is going to be there as the provider of the device, but also they'll be one of the big advertisers, I'm sure.
What do you think is the main challenge for the broadband connected television to actually get to the living room?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be the right type of devices coming through, which are able to access the internet. So, in the last few years, we've seen TVs go from being big boxes into slim TVs. I think over the next few years, we'll see those slim TVs becoming internet capable, and then I think that's the biggest challenge facing us.
Aren't you worried about the differences between the platforms? Because what I see now is that a lot of manufacturers are coming up with their devices, and similarly, even broadcasters, the traditional broadcasters, are coming up with broadband applications, but there seems to be so much stuff out there.
Absolutely. I think the key for Google with all our products is to make sure that they're accessible via the internet. So as long as all these devices have some kind of internet capability, I think we're going to be able to be very comfortable that you'll be able to access YouTube. Personal
video sharing was the original idea. You mentioned now more commercial content is there. So do you want to expand this path and become even more business friendly?
I think we're very business friendly already, and I think you've probably seen in many other countries such as the US and the UK, we've done several deals with the biggest broadcasters to have full-length episodes and movies on YouTube. So I definitely see that increasing over time. But at the core, we must always remember that YouTube is about you and has to be the ability to share your videos with the world.
Who is your biggest competitor?
I don't think we have competitors in the same way that other businesses do. We're in a really small, growing industry, video, and I think we're looking forward to kind of expanding the industry. And
I'll help you, Hulu.
I think there's a lot of streaming video services. Hulu's one of them. Most of the major broadcasters also have their own services. Here in Czech, for example, you have Stream. But I think the great thing about this is they're all helping build the market for online videos. So I think it's wonderful to have them here, and I'm really excited to see them work with us on growing the market.
Will you be able to also localize the content? Because you mentioned Stream, and that's actually one of the examples of a site that produces or focuses on local content as well. And it seems that it's easier for someone who is in that market to be able to do that better than perhaps a global player. What's your take on that?
Well, I think we offer the best of both worlds. We obviously have global content, and what you can see from already the usage in Czech is that people here love to see content from all over the world. But we also are working on making more local content available. And the last thing, which I think is really exciting that we're working on, is captioning. So we're able to have subtitles in any language added to any video in live translation, which is going to make it a lot easier.
2 billion videos are viewed every day on YouTube, and you've been around for 5 years, as I mentioned at the beginning. How many videos is it going to be in 5 years from now?
Well, I have no idea. I don't think anyone had any idea that we would be at 2 billion videos after 5 years. But what's really exciting is that we're seeing an increase in the amount of time spent on YouTube. So hopefully in the next 5 years, we're going to, through different devices and different access points, be able to grow that number of time spent.
Suveer, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Z dnešního pořadu Téma Z1 je to vše. Doplním už jen, že tento pořad najdete i na našem YouTube videokanálu na adrese youtube.com/Z1TV. V pondělí večer se na tomto místě bude Aneta Snopová věnovat biznesu a politice. Konkrétně se podívá na snahu vlád o větší regulaci finančních trhů a řeč bude také o ekonomické části volebních programů největších českých politických stran. Na viděnou.